If you're coming from the Android development, if you try to search in Google, you know that in mobile it's very typical to have a lot of frameworks like React Native, like Cordova, Ionic, a lot of things trying to push with this, right?
Yeah.
But somebody can tell me who or which technology was the first that put this mantra of write once, run everywhere? Somebody? Exactly, Java. Very good, yeah. This is the official release press from Java 1 in 1996. So there, they were saying that Java's write once, run everywhere capability, along with easy accessibility, whatever, they were the first that they were announcing this thing, and now all the people from the website is trying to do the same with us. But at that moment, there was always haters, right? So haters everywhere, right? This is like, but it's more like write once, run everything. And this is a funny video from the JavaZone 2013. It's very funny because they are doing like movies, trailers of movies about Java. I remember that one was Breaking Bad. It was in 2015, Breaking Bad, another of Game of Thrones, right? So it's like something about the king of the refactor, or I don't know. So, but it's very funny. Okay, and well, we are in an Android conference, and of course, Kotlin native, right? That's something that we know that is there, and apparently, it's trying to give us a lot of portability with different platforms. That's very well ambitious. Windows, Linux, macOS, iOS, Android, and WebAssembly. Sadly, Kotlin native is currently in development, so it's not still very official, so nobody can do it. I think in the last Kotlin Conf, the official app was released in Kotlin native, but from the people of JetBrains, so they are working together. Well, they're the same company. So, in the recommendation, of course, you have to follow this Kotlin native, but still it's not ready for presentation. So I mean that we cannot fill the dreams of our manager to write once, run everywhere, right? And what about Kotlin today? So Kotlin today, we have Android. I'm not going to stop to talk about how the community has embraced Kotlin in the Android platform because everybody loves Kotlin. You can see here in the other room how many types of Kotlin we have. Kotlin is using too with the web, Kotlin JS. Something that I'm not very familiar with this, but well, apparently, so the same, the Kotlin compiler for JS can generate the JavaScript, and you can use the HTML under the hood, right? That's something very cool if you want to still keep Kotlin from the web, from pointing to the JavaScript. Good use case, I have seen that, for example, that today we have talked a lot about Firebase functions. And in the talk of that, you have seen that it can be in TypeScript or JavaScript. With Kotlin, you can write in Kotlin and then generate the JavaScript to generate the Firebase function. Okay, so server. What about server? So with the server, we don't have to do anything special because it's a Java virtual machine language, right? So once you are running something with Java, in theory, you can run with Kotlin too. How many backend developers are here in the room? Backend developers? No one? One. Okay. If I say something wrong, you can tell me later, okay? Okay, with the server, so last Thursday we were talking in the Commonwealth conference, and one guy was telling me that he is working with Java and Spring. So actually, you can work with Kotlin in the Spring, in the framework for the server. You can use Nator, that is another framework. It's provided by JetBrains, so the same company as Kotlin. And Vertex, that some friend recommended me, and it looks great. So it's a framework for server, but in a reactive way, and handling very good the multi-threading. So if you are in things of server, Vertex.io is a recommendation. It's not only for Kotlin, Java, Scala, everything. Okay, and if we are talking about deployment with these frameworks to Kotlin in the servers we have Heroku, of course, Amazon Web Service, and Google Cloud. It is here where this talk is going to be, because we are going to try to do something with Kotlin in Google Cloud. So Google Cloud is a product from Google, of course, that is trying to have all the relation with all the products that Google is trying to put on the cloud. Because at the end, Android, Firebase, whatever, so Google, besides the ads business, is a cloud company. Nobody scales like Google. Infrastructure, deployment, everything. So Kubernetes, for example, is from Google. And how we can differentiate the service. So we have difference before with Q. We have seen some like the Cloud Scroll, for example. No, it was Translate API or Prediction API. You have different service, right? In our case, we are going to be focused in the hosting, right? Plus something else, but it's App Engine. Somebody knows what is App Engine? No? Well, okay, perfect. 5 or 6 years ago, Firebase was not there, okay? And what happened with the developers that we wanted to do something, MVP of our product, so without Firebase, right? We have App Engine, and it was very easy to deploy, right? Easy, now it's much better, right? But before with Eclipse, remember the times with Eclipse, building workspace, the eternal window, we were using a plugin, a SDK, and it was not complex, but a little bit tedious. Okay, then we have this cloud endpoints, so that's something very cool because allow you to build APIs in a scalable way too, right? That's something, again, that is provided by Google by you. And the business model here is if you are consuming a lot of endpoints or performance with App Engine, you are going to pay more. But if you have 2 million users, that means that you're getting money. Or let's think, right? Because if not, pay as you consume. Okay. So and basically, architecture with this thing would be App Engine on the server side, cloud endpoints to offer an API of a reliable API, and then you have your consumer independent of the platform, right? So you are offering an API. In my work, I work as Android developer. I have the people from API that is exposing an API, right? So that's the thing. Okay, so apparently, before years ago, you can only work with App Engine, with Java and Python, and now has changed. Now you can work with JavaScript, with Ruby, with Go, with .NET, and with PHP. But here we have Java. And that's where we want to replace Java for Kotlin. And I don't know why Google is not saying that we can work with Kotlin in App Engine, because we can, as you are going to see. And it's something that is very good. That's clear that if you are working in backend, so you cannot compare with Scala, for example, right? But we are trying to embrace the whole development in one platform, right? So in one language to have this flexibility. Let's see a simple hello world and how to work with Kotlin in App Engine. The requirements that we need is install the SDK of Google Cloud, a simple code to download the code, and then we need to install the App Engine Java from the Google Cloud tool. So if you're using Firebase Test Lab, or if you are using some product from Google that implies G-Cloud, you need to download this SDK, and you are going to use everything with this SDK. So once you have this, you can use the API translate, the endpoints, whatever. In that case, we have to download first the Google Cloud SDK, and then we are going to install the App Engine Java, right? That is another. More things. We need Android Studio or IntelliJ. Yeah, Android Studio to do something for the server, okay? And the Gradle plugin. So that's something quite good, because before, again, so to deploy to the server, it was a little bit tedious, and now with Gradle, with a simple task, let me show you. With a simple task, this plugin generates the task for you. You can try to deploy to the server or run locally, trying to debug, whatever. So it's not, well, for the first time you can see, but we can run App Engine deploy, App Engine run, so App Engine start, whatever we want to do, locally and remotely. Okay, so let's go coding and to see the example. And for the last lines that I know that it's not going to see too very good, but this is for the hello world, this is the simple example, right? This is a project. We have our Java source set where we have a BI, then I'm going to explain endpoints that because we want to expose as API, entities, and one service. And then some files of configuration and the build breakdown. That's not very complex, right? To start on one project. Sounds, it's not a hello world, it's doing more things, right? Let's go to the example. Okay, so this is, for example, again, the thing with the cloud endpoints, again, it's like the fourth time that we want to offer an API, a REST API in that case, right? So the things that we are consuming, for example, from GitHub years ago, it was an API in format REST. So the same here. Here we are defining which API we want to declare, that is Kotlin, the version, and then we're going to define the final endpoints. So in that case, it's going to be get with a parameter. So far, so good, right? So it's normal that if I'm trying to do something in Kotlin in the server, I want to expose this code to the real world. Let's see more files. So we have then the file of configuration, right? So it's one of the files, and because you are working on the server, you have to give some rules or some indication. In that case, we are saying that the service is the Droidcon endpoint in that case, okay? So nothing else. And then some redirection when somebody calls to your endpoint with this servlet, you are going to redirect to this direction, right? So something more about the server configuration. Okay, what else? So we have the class, a simple class, data class, with only one message. And I think that we don't have a lot of things more. We have the message, we have the service, of course. The service is the response that we are going to generate. In that case, the answer of our service is a message with some words. And then we have what else? Yeah, the main file of configuration, like the Android manifest, where we are declaring the name of the app and the version, because when you are deploying to the server, you have to specify which version do you want. Okay, what else? That's it, of course, and it's one thing that I wanted to say, that here we are using Dagger. Dagger is a dependency injection framework, not for Android, right? But we can start thinking that we can bring some concepts that we know in Android, so more further like in the server. So next step is trying to start running the server locally. We want to run locally the server. So I'm going to the console. And as I said before, the Gradle, the Cloud Gradle plugin is offering me different tasks. So one of the tasks is, I have internet, is this one. So app engine run, and here, well, it's starting Java, of course. Well, it's very fast in that case. So that means that we have a local instance of our server locally. Okay. So let's try to test our deployment. Okay. Well, first of all, yeah. Well, let's do first the example, and then I'm going to show you the example. So this is the URL. Okay. So is the version 3? Yeah. Have you seen? So with 3 files, and one of the files, the message is only one line, I can offer, because I didn't say anything about JSONs, about anything, right? So I'm offering an API service that is a simple thing, right? I'm only passing a parameter to the rest, that's Iñaki, and it's putting the name. So if I change the parameter to another thing, so it's going to get the thing. So I guess that you are getting the idea, right? So fast, easy, and simple. So additionally, you have a administration console with your options, right? So this is something that is local in the cloud. You have more options, but if you want to test, I don't know. So I mean, the task queues of the data store that we are going to talk later, you can test easily locally. So far, so good. Okay? So now we have done something in Kotlin for the server. Okay, I'm going to stop the server and let's continue. Yeah, deploying. So once we have run our for locally and we are ready to deploy, we can deploy to the Google Cloud. And that's something that we don't have to do anything because Google is offering all the tools that we have. So first of all, we have to create a project in the Google Cloud because everything like Firebase, like all the things, you have to create a project, a single entity. Then locally we have to authenticate because Google is going to ask for permissions linked to your account. And set up the project. I have created Kotlin Server client and I have locally to say that the default configuration when I'm trying to do a deploy is going to be with this project ID. And finally, I'm going to deploy my application. And the ID that you are choosing is going to be the ID on the first of your domain because AppSpot is something from Google. So you're going to have your ID, and then in my case, like I have defined an API, a REST API is going to do everything. Okay? By the way, Pokemon Go, all the infrastructure was based on Google Cloud App Engine. So, I mean that there are very, very powerful tools to deploy in our example. So let's go to go further with an advanced example. So in Thailand, I'm living in Thailand. It's, well, you know, we have now a hype with cryptocurrencies, right? So, and there is one service called VX that is offering an API to talk about the places, right? So to talk about the prices, whatever. So, and the second example that we're going to do is like consume the API in our Kotlin server, and then from another client we want to consume, because you know that if you are checking a lot of times this API, maybe you can have some penalization or whatever, right? But let me explain later. Okay, in a simple case, this is going to be slightly the architecture, right? We have the server, we are going to define a domain layer, where we are going to specify our use cases, and then we are going to have a repository that is going to abstract the origin of the data. Can be local or can be remote. If we are entering in details about everything, talking about the local, the persistence of the information, if you are using Android, you can use now Room, for example, SQLite, whatever. But in Google Cloud, you're using data store. And data store is something that is very similar with the name Firestore. That is something that is based in data store. Data store has maybe 10 years in Google, right? And it's something that is very well tested. Additionally, we are going to use Objectify because it's an abstraction of the data store, because maybe sometimes it's a little bit complex to work directly with the data store. In remote, with the repository remote, we are going to work with Retrofit. So, something that is entirely from Android. Okay, so now we are exporting our knowledge of Android to the server. Then in the domain, we are going to create our use cases. One use case is going to be synchronized with VX, with the other service, and the other use case is get trades, because we want to know the price of the Bitcoin, for example, or whatever. The use case is get trades. Additionally, for the synchronization with the other website, we have the option in Google Cloud to use crons. Crons, like in the Linux machines, we can do the same. We can define every 5 minutes to check this thing. And this operation is running on the server, not in the client. So we can populate it, or we can try to do whatever we want. And finally, the API is going to be offered by the endpoints, right? Cloud endpoints, as we saw before. And everything is going to be played together with Dagger. Okay, so, and we have found some problems trying to implement this architecture. First of all is with Retrofit. You cannot use Retrofit directly, Retrofit 2, inside App Engine. You are having a problem with the proxy selector from the Java. But that's something that very well known in 2015, and the people from Retrofit, so Square and Jake Wharton, provides the possibility to extend the call interface from Retrofit. So we can try to create a wrapper, trying to apply the solution, And then in our retrofit instance, we can try to build a factory wrapper. So, and we can solve this problem and still using retrofit. Another problem that I found is the cron. With the cron, so trying to get the data from the VX, Google Cloud endpoints, you cannot use Google Cloud endpoints with cron. What was the solution? So create another service and wrap the call in the new service. That's the thing. So Google doesn't want that you apply this cron inside the endpoints. Okay, let's go to see the example, right, Tony? So, okay. I have to change the brand. Okay, so here the things are now obviously more complex because we are including repositories, we are including use cases, but still we are under the same structure. Let me show you maybe the app model. That's something that you can imagine, the dependencies that I'm trying to inject in the application, and you can get the idea. So here it's funny because if you are comparing a device, a mobile app with a server app, there are differences. For example, in the app, in the server, it's not so important the speed as you are deploying, right? So the thing is like, so you have to have all the dependencies loaded as soon as possible. Instead of the devices, the smartphone, I want to run fast, right? At the beginning of the app. My dependencies are going to be lazy. We don't want to have these lazy dependencies in the server, right? It's different context. So what I'm injecting, Objectify. Again, I need to inject the Objectify to apply the trick with the data store. And then the same thing I was saying about the use cases, like the get traits, the repositories, the REST API, and the detail of implementation of the service. So at the end, 8 dependencies. It's not so much. Let's see one, for example. Get traits is a use case of the domain entity that only given an ID, you are going to get a list of traits. Nothing special. If we check the implementation, we can see that the dependency that we are using is a local repository. Okay? And the local repository, if we go to the implementation, is, in that case, we are reading from the data store and transforming the entity from the data store in an entity that we want to offer to the world, right? Because we don't want to offer the entity from the data store, from the database to the world. We want to apply another entity. So, and so on, so on, so on. So it's nothing complicated, honestly. So if you're working in Android, this is only 2 hours of work. What thing I think that here we can say, and it's important. So in terms of the endpoints, we have added a new endpoint. So, well, 2 news. Check. Now in my API, I'm generating one call that is sync to synchronize the data with external server, and then another that is traits to get the traits that I'm consuming from the data store. So the idea, every 2 minutes, I want to get the data from the other server, and then to my users, I want to offer the last traits. So far, so good. That's clear? So how do you combine, how you define the crons? For example, you have a web file cron configuration, and it's easy. Okay, you only have to specify when you want to specify the things. Okay, and before we were checking this thing in terms of local. Now we're going to try in this demo, trying to deploy to Google Cloud. Okay. So I'm going to clean first because between the different branches, and let me check which version I'm going to deploy. Is the 4. Okay. Clean server deployed. And let's see what happened. So this is a project of Android Studio at the end. This is a project of Android Studio, so I'm not doing anything with one plugin or installing something in IntelliJ, nothing else. Something very, very simple. Surprisingly very simple. So here, the cool thing of this plugin of trying to deploy is detecting the change. So you are not going to deploy everything. So if something is new, it's going to be uploaded. If not, it's going to be here. Okay, so in that case, it's uploading 43 files to this version, and it's going to be faster. Okay, you can see here that it started in my client ID that I have defined. So okay, and then all the theory behind how App Engine is trying to deploy a new version, how you can try to split and have maybe 20% of your users with the version 2 and 80% of the users is like a science, honestly. So if you are in cloud things, this is awesome. So this is here. So let's go to the website, and yeah, let's go first to we have to go to the console and see what's happening. So App Engine Google console. Okay, this is the website where you can handle everything from your Google Cloud product. So in that case, I have 8 versions that I have deployed of my application. And here you can see a summary on what's happening, the total requests that are happening, for example, the client errors, and so on and so on. Here we have a task queues. There is another option. And we have a tab where says jobs, the jobs pending to execute. And the job is here. The job that I have defined is going to repopulate the cache every 2 minutes. And it's going to happen, oh, well, it has been success. Okay, so that means that I can go to my data store, so my database, to see if I have something there already populated in my version. Data store. Okay. Yeah, exactly. This is the information that actually the job has inserted in my. It's not a database. It's a data store from Google, and I have information about everything, right? So the trade type, the date, the rate, whatever. That's not something important. So once we have this information here, because we have consumed one use case, now we have to test if we can get the data from the server in a REST API format. So Kotlin test server traits 1, and the version is the version 4. I'm calling there. Oh. And I have the information, but I don't understand. Well, whatever. I have some problem there, so with the client version, maybe. No. I have one error in the client in the server transformation. But well, let's continue. So you're getting the idea, right? Because now we are going to see the final example with everything working. So here I have deployed this URL, and with this URL I can check all the threads from my database. Okay, so let's continue with the slides, and it's quite good, right? We have learned something new, but the idea is trying to combine Kotlin in the both sides, right? So in the server and in Android. So one idea of implementation, I think that it works very well, is given that I have the client and the server, I can create, because these two are modules of Gradle inside under the studio, I can create another module that is called core, and I can put there, so not the common things that I can put there, but imagine that if my business is in a bank and I have to get the accounts, this is a use case. And this use case is for both, for the mobile API and from the client. It's not something that we have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. That's something that we can put together. Another thing is the repository abstractions. If we are following the clean architecture, we are going to implement repositories, the local and the remote. So that means that I can abstract, and with Kotlin, with the generics and the covariance and contravariance, we can get some abstractions inside this module. The same for the Dagger. That's very ambitious, but we can do something with Dagger. Yeah, we can create a module, an abstract module that is going to inject the generics that we are going to pass from the client and from the server. So we are not going to write again the same things. And finally, the dependencies, because if I'm using Retrofit in the server and I'm using Retrofit in the client, I can use the same dependencies, right? Okay, we have, well, 13 minutes. Let's see one example with GetTrace, right? Again, the idea is to use this use case from the core in both platforms and see that it's working. Okay. Have to change the brands too. Okay, I'm here. Okay, now we have this new module that is called core, and I have to find one use case, and this use case is GetTrace, and this is in the core. It's not in the client. It's not in the server. It's in the core. I have to find the entities of my domain model that are trades and trade. Please don't tell me anything about it in mutable list or not, because that's not the idea. So the idea is trying to have this. So I have the trade that is one entity that is going to be the same for the server and for the customer. Okay, let's check the server. In that case, remember that we are having the same architecture, and we are going to check the domain from the server, actually the implementation of the interface. But this interface is not in the server. This interface is in the core. So I'm defining my use case from another module. Okay, and let's see, well, the same is working the same for the other case. And now we're going to check the Android part. The Android part is very simple, so I'm not doing anything strange, but I'm trying to implement the domain, the repository too, and the domain is implementing to the core implementation of the use case. So my implementation is applying the contract of the server, of the core, not the contract that I defined. And I can try to save a lot of time and try to understand better the architecture of my app, right? And then, so of course you have to have entities, local entities, because if you are working with room, if you are working with data store, so it's something that belongs to the platform, it doesn't belong to you, right? We have to work in these abstractions. And what else? So I think that we can try to run the example, of course. So for this thing, I'm going to, first of all, stop the server. We have the lifter. Okay. Gradle clean server app run. Sorry. Okay. Now I'm in the locally, and I'm going to try to start the server locally. Okay. It's running, and if it's running, we know that we can. Well, I have to execute first the check one thing. Well, we can, the local database, it doesn't have anything. So we need to populate. We cannot implement crons in manually. It's something from the app engine from Linux too. So let me check this and localhost. First of all, I need to sync the pair. Okay, and now I have information. Okay, and well, so now the only thing that we have to do is run the app. Okay. In the last conference in Singapore, I put a little bit music, and looks like it was most emotional. If you don't mind, I'm going to put music. If it's going to fail, it's going to be a fail. Sorry, no, but let's try it. So, okay, well, yeah. That's it. Okay, I cannot put it on the studio. Oh! What happened? Sorry. Let me clean the project. By the way, meanwhile, so in terms of the API, you see that they're not tricked. I'm trying to connect to the local host. Okay, that's my base URL, and then to the endpoint. So I'm trying to point directly to there. So, okay, because if you are using your local host, your server is not going to work. Okay, launching activity. Why I cannot launch this? Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry guys, but keep the music, yeah? So just let me take one thing. Because, well, Android developers call me too, right? Because he's saying something about the intent that I'm not checking. The home screen is okay, the intent, right? So, look at. Okay, oh, service available. Okay, that's another thing. Let's check what happened with the server. It's connected. So it looks like something strange here. We are having it's right. Oh. This is an error from the server, okay? Let's store null. It works the typical thing that we are doing in our vault, so it's like restart everything. And if not, I can show you later how to do this thing. Okay, but so the idea, again, is trying to combine the entities, use cases, whatever, so between server and client. Okay, running. Let's see. Let's see if it's running now. Let's see. No, it's not close. Okay, Kotlin V2, traits 1. Okay, now it's live, but I need to insert data. And maybe something will process. I'm inserting. Okay. So I'm not going to put the music in. Okay, let's see what happened. Oh, we have an error, but again, so if it's not working now, I must say. Yeah, you think that. Let me first so because again is the thing that we have. No? Okay, the endpoint is here. So the endpoint is here. Data clean. We have 2 minutes to try it, no? I will show you later. Install the server is there. Yeah. He wants me to clean the projects. Well, so 1 minute only I have, and no questions. If you have one question, we can ask later because 45 minutes. But so again, from the perspective of the client, it was only to get the API, but the API not from the BX service in Thailand, the API from Google App Engine of my server, that it has the same endpoints, that it has the same use cases, and it has the same entities. So what's next? I have to publish the GitHub repository because I think it can be very, very useful as example, and trying to get ideas. Again, you're not going to say to the Scala colleague in your company, no, let's do in Kotlin. But if you have some idea of you want to play, I think that is a very good thing to try to understand and to try to offer your service to in the cloud. And Medium article, 45 minutes, 3 seconds. Come on, thank you very much.